hanging out with us on this Victory Monday. Rob Ellis along with Derek Gunn. Barrett Brooks, a little banged up, but he'll be fine. He's getting some oral surgery done. He'll be ready to roll tomorrow. So let me give you this first, Derek, and we'll continue the football talk in 1 second. But Joel Embiid out tomorrow against the Nets, out Tuesday as well, sprained foot. So as of right now, Gunner, you're looking at no Harden, no Maxey, and we'll get into Maxey more in a little bit. No Embiid, no Tobias Harris. PJ Tucker is your lone star. Lone starter still standing, man. Whoa. Okay.
It's like watching the Phillies, man.
I mean, whoa.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Not good.
I guess if you're going to go through this stuff, go through it early in the season. But my goodness, 4 starters out at the same time? Are you kidding me? And your lone starter who's in there averages what, 2 points a game?
Uh-huh. Yeah, barely he'll get like 1 field goal attempt a game.
And your bench is now consistently giving you much of anything all season.
Yeah.
Who are you starting?
You're gonna look at like DeAnthony Melton.
Oh my goodness.
Boy, oh boy. Shake Milton. Paul Reed. Montrezl Harrell might work into the equation.
Wow.
Yeah. Not good. Not good. We'll just leave it at that. We'll get more in the angle start. Yeah. Mick Ritchie is right in the angle.
Goodness.
So anyway, it's just the good. Here's the good news. None of this appears to be long-term for anybody. You know, Harden's pretty close to being back. It doesn't seem like Tobias Harris think it's a hip is all that serious. Maxey, that one sucks, and it's 3 to 4 weeks, and that happened Friday, but, you know, we'll see. And you know, with Embiid, you never know, but it seems like it's not anything super serious.
You know, it seems like every other week is something with Embiid. It's an illness. First, it was a plantar fasciitis, and we'll get into it more, but it's like the season is still young, but it's been something like every other week with this dude, man.
Yeah, well, it's his whole career. You know, honestly, it's always been that way. You know, brilliance when he plays and, you know, frustrations at his availability. So, all right, we'll get more into that later. But let's stick with what we were discussing a little bit earlier, the Eagles win over the Colts in comeback fashion. That's for sure, in a big spot. We'll go to the offense in a minute, but I want to talk about the defense, Gunner. And mentioned earlier, you know, Jonathan Taylor on that first drive, 7 rushes, 49 yards, which is 7 yards per carry. And he scored a touchdown. You're saying to yourself, he's going to shred them. He's going to go right through them on the afternoon, just like he has a lot of his career to other opponents and the Raiders the previous week. And we know the Eagles defense the week before gave up a ton of yards, even though the yards per carry weren't all that high. But the rest of the way, Jonathan Taylor, 15 rushes, 35 yards, just 2.5 yards per carry, no touchdowns. They absolutely locked him down the rest of the way after that.
You know, and Rob, they went to that 5-man front, and it makes a big difference because on that 4-man front, you know, they were doubling down on the tackles, which opened up a lot of lanes for runners to go through. But once they went to that 5-man front, and you saw the linebackers come up and make a more concerted effort to fill the gaps, that was a big difference in the run game. I think the Eagles finally identified that Indianapolis didn't have the offensive weapons, or, you know, maybe identified it even more so before the game in terms of studying for this opponent. They weren't too concerned about the likes of Michael Pittman and Pierce and Ali Cox doing damage on them deep, and he could put more people in the box. You know, there were some times that Matt Ryan hit him with quick slants over the middle or for some big first downs. But for the most part, these are not top-end wide receivers in the game that they have to concern themselves about. And once they made that concerted effort to plug the line of scrimmage, that was a big difference in terms of stoning the run, because the Colts couldn't deviate much from what their game plan was. You look at some teams, you look at teams like the Buffaloes, the Kansas Cities, the Minnesotas, the Dallases. If you take away one thing, they're going to hit you somewhere else. Mm-hmm. The Colts basically had to stick to what got them this far this season. You know, Jonathan Taylor, for as good as he is, he'd only had 2 100-yard rushing games this year, the first game of the season and last game. And putting those 2 players in there, Sue and Linville, big difference in terms of defending against the run. T.J. Edwards finally had a good game. I thought the last several games, T.J. Edwards' game was off. In many cases, a no-show. But the linebackers came up, filled the gaps better, and forced Indianapolis's hand, and they couldn't beat them once the Eagles' defense settled in and made the Colts one-dimensional.
Yeah, and which they absolutely did. And that's that's the key with them, and it's going to be the key all year with the Colts, is because, like you said, they don't have the weapons on the outside, and Matt Ryan's not the same guy. So if you're able to handle that part of it, you're going to be fine. But we didn't know. I mean, we went into the game saying, I'm not really sure, what this exactly is going to look like. And, credit where credit's due. As much as people wanted to dump on Jonathan Gannon, you got to give him some love. His defense played awesome. You hold a team to 16 points, you'll take it every single Sunday, Monday, Thursday.
Wait. Let me think about this for a second. You
yes,
said
you heard.
Got to give Jonathan Gannon some love.
Correct. Yes,
Can I give him a like instead of some love?
No, give him love, Derek. You got to give him love if you're being
Rob,
objective.
I can't. I'm trying my best, Rob. I'm trying. Every time that I've tried to get back on that Gannon wagon, he does something that just makes me jump off. I have to give him like. I can't give him love yet.
All right, I'm giving him love.
I'm sorry. And you saw. Hey, look. Oh, you saw the caption I sent you from John Dickerson.
Yeah,
yesterday.
I saw it. So here's the thing.
Dude, that was funny. That was hilarious.
Xander, if you could pull that up, he sent it to Derek and I. The Gann wagon imploding. That's what happens after the first drive. Interestingly enough, I don't get anything after that when the defense settles in and locks in. Funny, I don't have anything after that when the defense does its job and then some. Okay. Yes, I'm waiting to hear from you too, D-Gun. Thank you. All right, let me give you the snaps.
Okay.
While we're at it. All right, so I think it was interesting considering, right? I mean, considering these guys we weren't even sure if they were. I thought Joseph would be active. Sue was a toss-up, but so Joseph ends up playing 40% of the snaps. He got 26 snaps.
Yep.
Sue got 17, which is, computes to 26%. That's a pretty healthy percentage for guys who weren't here. And when you consider they got a half a sack, full sack together, not only tackles, but tackles for losses as well. And they both got they got a couple QB hits as well.
Yes.
It's about as good as a debut as you could ask for that short period of time.
That's not bad. Sue walks in and practices on a Friday. Linville gets there the day before. But the difference between, we were talking about how, hey, man, I hope they don't pull a hamstring the first game the way Deshaun Jackson did in Baltimore. Well, in Deshaun's case, you're asking this dude to run full bore, 50, 60 yards down the field. Your D tackles don't have to do that. They don't have to control the space. You only have to keep moving forward in most cases. You don't have to do a lot of lateral pursuit because you got guys on the edge of linebackers that are supposed to take care of the outside containment. And 17 plays, 26 plays, not bad. Now you got a full week to get ready for your next opponent. And by the way, an opponent in a lot of ways that's very similar to the opponent that just played, the Colts. An opponent, they don't have a lot of offensive weapons except for running backs. They have a future Hall of Fame quarterback whose game has been way off this year. So you're going to play a similar opponent as you just played. So now you're going to have Joseph and Sue get a full week of practice to get a better understanding of the different line calls and stunts. And the Eagles ran a few more stunts than they did against Washington as well. And I'd like to see Jonathan Gannon implement that more, run more line stunts. That seems to be effective for a lot of teams, i.e. the Dallas Cowboys. They run a lot of stunts. Look at how many sacks they have this season.
No question.
And I know sometimes sacks are overrated, but still, that's consistent pressure on a quarterback. And I think the Eagles, once they get these guys up to speed and get a little bit more comfortable with what you need them to do, I think you're going to see even more improvement. I mean, they held the Colts to 99 yards rushing. They finally held an opponent under that C-level, under that century mark, finally, by 1 yard. But they did it because I'm like you. After that first series, I'm thinking, man, Jonathan Taylor's about to run for $150 today, at least $150. And that one run he took off for 28 yards, you saw the arm tackling again.
You did.
Guys, you're trying. And then the one play, Jonathan Taylor gets outside, goes down the sideline, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson is trying to tackle him up in his shoulders, and he got beast mode. He got beast mode when Taylor shoved him out of bounds, and then C.J. gets an attitude, wants to get in his face. No, If you're taking his legs out from under him, he wouldn't have got that extra 3 or 4 yards, man.
Yeah,
I don't understand these guys trying to tackle guys up high like that. I just don't either. Get it.
But we did see them correct it as the game went on. Interesting stats here. John Ganud from the Eagles, who we both know does an excellent job with their PR staff, sends out these tweets, which I find them very interesting. But so in looking at some of the overall defensive stats, not just from the game but the season for the Eagles, they're giving up 18 points per game, which is 7. Very good. They're second in yards per game allowed. They're first in takeaways. And they're first in yards per play allowed. Look, the overall defensive numbers are good, Derek. They really are.
Absolutely.
As much as we kind of joke about things, they are.
Absolutely, Rob. It's a bend but don't break defense. They're an opportunistic bunch. They don't play perfect all the time, but they play and make big plays when they have to, whether it's forcing a quarterback on an incompletion, stopping the run, coming up with a big turnover at a strategic point of the game. I'll take that every day of the week. You don't have to be the number one defense. As long as you're an effective defense and you're getting off the field, you hold any NFL opponents to an average of under 20 points a game in today's offensive game. You're doing a heck of a job, and I don't care how you get to that point. You're doing a heck of a job as a unit.
I will tell you, too, I saw – it was Edwards one time. I'm trying to remember who else he sent. Gannon did send some extra pressure late on that last series.
Yes.
And one of them, it didn't result directly in a sack, but I think it was TJ Edwards who bullied whoever was in front of him and pushed him into Matt Ryan's face and disrupted things. I was glad to see that. I was glad to see Gannon get out of his comfort zone a little bit when he needed to late in the game and make some adjustments to do things a little bit differently. I know he's never going to be this just reckless gunslinger, whatever, but you got to get out of your comfort zone sometimes. And I thought he did that. And I was encouraged to see that from him. And I'll tell you, they came up with some really clutch sacks. The Reddick sack was huge. Obviously Brandon Graham's is the biggest of the game,
right?
But the Reddick sack was gigantic earlier.
And Reddick got away with one. Oh my goodness, that face mask. But then again, what happens to one should happen to another. They didn't call the face mask on Goddard Monday night, and it cost him 4 games because he got injured on the play. But when he grabbed that face mask, I'm thinking, oh, no. And I'm like, wait a minute. No call. What?
I know. I swear
get to the next play. Get to the next play.
After it happened, I'm like, I'm thinking, did they not put the little yellow thing on the TV monitor? I'm like, look, where? They didn't call that? And then you see the replay, and you're like, okay. Thank you. Usually,
keep going.
Usually, it evens. You want it to even out in game. Now, it didn't even out in game for the Eagles against Washington. They got the short end of the stick, but that was one that they got. They certainly got away with. That's for sure. But that was big, and you got a couple guys, Derek, involved in terms of sacks that had been quiet. Reddick had been relatively quiet.
Yes,
we know Brandon Graham. We talked about it last week. Has been quiet lately. Maybe that gets them going a little bit, going into next week.
Well, and again, it helps when you have a deep rotation. Some players say they need X amount of snaps to get in a groove, to get going. And when you look at the situation with Brandon Graham's playing 26% one game, 32% one game, it keeps you fresher. But it takes you a little while to get your motor going. But in this case, man, he couldn't have picked a better time to come up with that defining sack in the game, because that put the Colts in even longer a situation. You got to stay relatively healthy. And so far, the Eagles are still, even though they're down Maddox, they're down Goddard, they're still a relatively healthy team compared to a lot of teams around the NFL.
Yeah.
And it goes back to Howie. Man, Howie, the way he constructed this team, with not just starting personnel, but with depth. When you lose an Avonte Maddox, now the backup is not Avonte Maddox, but he's good enough considering the collection of people around him to where he's not exposed in any way, shape, or form. Now, couple minor hiccups here and there, but, nothing major, and so that's a tremendous help in terms of a team being able to overcome adversity. Because we've seen so many teams that once you lose a frontline player, whether it's an offensive lineman, a running back, it affects the overall flow and continuity of what they're trying to do. With this team, Not so much. No.
No, look, I would agree. I think again, I always try and, even though there were some frustrating moments, I try and glean, ultimately how this looks going forward. You're right. I mean, the big thing to your initial point about the injuries is you got to survive this a little bit. Like I look at some of these other teams, like I see the Chargers. It feels like every week they're missing somebody. Like even last night, Mike Williams tried to come back with that high ankle, and he's hobbling, and they get him out. It's like he's gone. They just got Keenan Allen back. They're missing two offensive tackles.
Yeah.
Herbert's playing hurt, etc. Some of these teams,
Mike Williams playing hurt.
Yeah, they can't overcome this stuff, and I think the Eagles will be able to hold the fort, so to speak, until they get some of these heavy guys back. When they get Jordan back, when they get Goddard back, I think they'll be able to hold the fort, especially with the additions that Howie made.
Yeah, and you got a guy now, Andre Dillard, who's healthy, who still can't get off the bench. Now, that's a great luxury to have when there was so much talk about trying to trade him earlier in the season for something you may need in terms of a backup or potentially another starter. And the Eagles stood their ground, said, we're not letting him go yet. And kudos to them for identifying you can't just let him go. Unless it's a wow offer, you can't just let him go because, I still don't think Mulata's 100%. And if it comes to a point in time where Mulata re-injures that thing, whatever it is, you got a first-round pick sitting on the bench waiting to play. How many teams have a first-round pick sitting on the bench just waiting to play? I can't think of one off the top of my head.
But I will, like you said, they made the right move not trading him. He's the best insurance policy you could have. We saw, when the Eagles have lost personnel for a short period of time along the offensive line, and this is before Andre Dillard was eligible to come back, that was a big fall off, man. Jack Driscoll's a big fall off. So to have Andre Dillard waiting there and ready to go is huge. And I think it's the smart way to go. Yeah. Is he probably just going to walk in the offseason? Yeah, he is. He is. But okay. I mean, it is what it is. But I don't think you can overshadow, how important it is that Howie went out. I think a lot of GMs, Derek, would have been satisfied just getting Linval Joseph. Just saying, all right, we did something, right? We addressed it. You brought in a guy and you're like, no, it's a nice move. But then to double down the next day and bring Sue in and to have both of those guys do that. And what you mentioned earlier, the long-term effect of not crushing Fletcher and Hargrave with the amount of snaps is huge.
Yeah. Prime example, Rob, go look at the Minnesota-Dallas game. Minnesota loses their starting left tackle, Christian Darrisaw.
Yeah.
Dallas exposed that in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
You can't say that with this team. If they lose a lineman, they're so good at shifting people around. And that's why, kudos to the offensive line coach for cross-training a lot of his linemen. Because you just start moving pieces around, dude, and the depth that they have. And because most of these guys have been here for at least a couple of years, it's plug and play with this team. And, and the show keeps moving forward. Anybody else, you lose somebody of that caliber, you know what? They're going to expose it 9 times out of 10, as Dallas did yesterday.
Derek,
not with this team. With this team.
Let's give a little love to Tracy Rocker, who is the defensive line coach. We rightfully praise Stoutland, who's the best in the game at what he does for getting guys ready and all that. Short notice, those cats were ready to play, man. And Tracy Rocker deserves a lot of love for that.
Yeah, we don't give him a lot of mention on this show. And matter of fact, not many people do. But I think it's at a point in time now. Especially, I'm so intrigued by seeing what he does with these pieces now moving forward. Now that he has 2 former Pro Bowlers in Sue and Joseph, in terms of how much he uses them, how much their numbers will increase, how much Fletcher and Hargrave's numbers might decrease to keep these guys alive. Fletcher, how the whole equation evolves when Jordan Davis comes back in there, because now you have 3 huge tackles that you're going to be trying to rotate in. And I'm not even just talking about, Hargrave and Fletcher. I'm talking about the 3 guys that are like the behemoths. You got a guy who's 6'6", 340 who's coming back.
Right.
You just brought in one guy's 307 and one 315, and now you're bringing another guy who's going to be coming back who's 340, 330. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Right. And guys who can play too. You're not just stuffing anybody in there. These are 2 dudes who have had really successful careers, and Sue especially. That guy was still really good last year.
Yeah, the fact that he was sitting at home at this point of a season, to me, I just don't understand why nobody picked him up before then. I just don't, unless he was strategically picking and choosing where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
And there's some guys in that situation when they've made their money, they don't want to go to training camp. They don't want to just go to anybody's team for the dollars and cents. They want to watch how the season unfolds and strategically pick where they have the best opportunity possible to possibly win. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, both of these guys sitting at home waiting for the right opportunity jumped at this opportunity.
So
now,
so you're right. I'm sorry. Finish your point. I'm sorry.
Will they play again after this season? Doesn't matter, because I don't think they'll be here. You know, depending on how many free agents the Eagles lose, I don't think either one will be here. But what they're doing is they're now thinking to themselves, do I have enough left in the tank to play again next year? And who knows? Maybe one of them will be back with this Eagles team. Who knows?
Yeah. No, you're right. But I do think two things. One, your point about them being fresh and not having gone through training camp in the first, whatever it was, 9 weeks. They're going to be feeling great at the end of the year. Knock on wood. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, the reports are out that Sue turned down a possible deal to go to the 49ers because he thought that the Eagles were a good fit for him. So I do think, to an extent, with these guys, it was a choice. They
absolutely, they
were looking at the right organization. They're not getting paid a ton, but they want to win a ring. I mean, Sue talked about it. He said, look, I've made a lot of money. I have 19-month-old twins at home. I could easily just stay home, chill, be a dad. He said his own mother was yelling at him because she wanted him to just retire, not get hurt anymore. He's like, but I want to win, man. So that's your motivation right there.
I think the report I saw Friday was he's made $166 million in his career. Okay. So it's not about the money. There's no question that he's already won a ring, and I guess his motivation is, I want to see if I can get one more before I'm all said and done. Who gives me the best opportunity? And, if that report is true that he turned down the 49ers, I wonder how many teams in the AFC were after him. Now, usually these things come out eventually. But when you think about the Buffaloes, Kansas Cities, Baltimore's, those are teams that need D linemen also too. Although Buffalo's defensive front is pretty doggone good. Yeah, I wonder how many teams from the AFC pursued him also.
It's a good question.
But the bottom line, he decides to come here. He feels this team gives him the best chance to grab that ring. So with that said, hey, more power. You got him for a base salary of $750.
I know.
To play the rest of the season. Are you kidding me? At the halfway point, $750. Incentives close to 2.5.
That's good. If he's hitting those, great. It means he's killing it. The team's killing it. I'll take it.
I'll take that. I'll take that every day of the week. And who knows? Is Howie done? Who's to say Howie won't identify something else before it's all said and done?
I'm wondering, and it's funny. I thought of this yesterday before last night's game, because then I saw him playing in last night's game for the Chargers. But I'm thinking, do they go down the Richard Rodgers road again at tight end?
Ooh.
But he's with the Chargers. But I'm just trying to think of somebody who's available on the street that may be able to give you a little bit of a boost until Goddard gets back. I am concerned because it looks like Stoll is almost strictly a blocking guy. Calcaterra will be a receiving guy, but I don't even know if he's figured that part of it out. And Tyree Jackson is, the guy's coming off a massive injury and he's converting to a different position. It's a lot. Yeah.
Your tight end position gave you one catch for 7 yards. And, whenever Jalen's in trouble, that safety valve has been Goddard. Goddard finds a way to get open. That safety valve's not there for the next 3 games at least. And who's to say he's going to be ready to play after 4 games?
No, that's the thing. That's the estimate. That's all. It's only an estimate. There's no guarantee.
You don't know. So you're gonna have to toe this line for a while. The rumors out there that maybe they'll look at Gronkowski and Tom Brady said he's last week or the week before Tom Brady said, hey, I've already talked. He's retired. He's staying retired. So if Brady says it, I believe Gronk is done with football.
If Brady's saying it, I buy it. Yes.
Yeah. He's if Brady can't get him to come out of retirement again, I think he's done with football. Mm-hmm. So that's one aspect of your offense you're gonna have to live with,
But that's again, this is where good coaching has to come into play. This is where Steichen And again, I don't think Steichen and Sirianni had a great day yesterday, and we'll get into that in a second. But this is where they have to figure this out. You know,
my biggest concern as we sit here right now, and I said it off the top of the show, our defenses and defensive coordinators, have they figured out how to play the Eagles offense?
Derek, I think that's a very fair question, and I think we're seeing that. I think let's dive into this when we get back. All right, because I think that's a good thing to talk about here is, you know, kind of where things are. They did what they had to do and they came up clutch offensively. But there are things when you move forward and you're playing at Dallas on Christmas Eve, you're playing the Giants 2 more times, when you get that Tennessee team, you know, you're gonna be able to overcome some of this stuff when you're playing the better caliber of teams. So let's dig into that when we come back. We will do that for sure. He's Derek. I'm Rob. We'll talk about the Eagles offense and yesterday and just kind of generally where things are when we get back. I have the Packers next, of course, on Sunday night, but we'll do that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I'm going to talk to you right now about Pro Action Restoration, because Pro Action Restoration is the place that you call or reach out to online if you're having any kind of issues, whether it's water, fire, smoke, mold damage, or something else that you're not quite sure about. Because here's the beauty. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I can attest to this. I called them on a Saturday. They got right out to my parents' house. They fixed it up. They cleaned it up. The crew was professional. The price was reasonable. They are the best. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, and fully insured, and they've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company as well. So, water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation. This is a crazy time of year from a weather standpoint. They can help you. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.
Don't wait until after Thanksgiving for